But D'Angelo's Voodoo. Now, he's a fascinating character. This record was big, sold like 1.7 million copies according to Wikipedia here.
Because it's one of the few albums I didn't buy on this list as well, even though it's huge.
I didn't buy it at the time, but I have to say, listening to it now, and maybe it's something to do with listening to an album from 2000 in 2024, it sounds incredible. So just to give people a little bit of a background to this album, D'Angelo was an artist who'd made one album previous to this, which had been a big R&B, soul, funk breakthrough record. He took 5 years making this follow-up record called Voodoo, in which he completely reinvented his sound. He wanted to get back to a more organic palette. And the big thing about this record is the use of Dilla time. Now, what is Dilla time? Most people are probably asking. Some people maybe know. There was a DJ called Jay Dilla, who I do have some albums by, who experimented with the idea of combining different rhythmic feels simultaneously. And it's something that comes from hip-hop, which is where hip-hop artists were using breakbeats from different records. And sometimes those breakbeats would be overlaid and they would have completely different feels.
Sure.
So one would be really pushing the beat and another one would be really behind the beat. So what you get when you put those two beats together as a DJ would be this natural kind of out-of-timeness, for want of a better expression. And what happened was a lot of live musicians were listening to these hip-hop records with these kind of very messy, loose, out-of-time grooves and learning how to play.
Yeah.
So this album, the main co-conspirator is Questlove, who people may know. He's a documentary maker now. He's made that brilliant Summer of Soul documentary. Brilliant drummer. The rhythm section on this record is Questlove and Pino Palladino, the bass player. The grooves are incredible because they have these natural, loose things you would listen to superficially and say, it's all out of time.
Yeah.
And one of the anecdotes I love about this record is Lenny Kravitz apparently was booked for a session to come in and play guitar. And he said, I can't play on that. Your drummer can't play. And he said, and it's Questlove is the drummer. He said, no, it's deliberate. And he stormed out. He said, I'm not going to play on that shit.
Yeah.
Sort it out. Get the drums content. And when you listen to this music, it's fascinating because the bass drum and the snare drum and the hi-hat all seem to inhabit a different place in time and space.
Well, you get that, I think, on the Tricky albums, in the 90s, where he's overlaying so many rhythms, samples that you don't know where it's...
Yeah.
The music's constantly shifting. And I listened to it based on you putting it on the list, and I think it's really good. It sounds fantastic. It sort of reminded me of an updated version of Prince at his most soulful and withdrawn.
Very much. Prince is he's the obvious successor to Prince.
Yeah, and maybe as well, I was thinking Sly, some of the early 70s Sly and the Family Stone stuff as well.
So when they were making this record, apparently they spent a lot of time listening to There's a Riot Going On, also to Prince, so you're spot on. Also his voice, that he sings in falsetto in a way that Prince, when Prince sang in falsetto, very similar. But what D'Angelo does is he overlays his voice into these huge blocks, like overdubbing his voice 7 or 8 times. So you get these huge blocks of falsetto soul singing. He's a brilliant singer. It's almost like the first... I mean, I'm no expert at all, I have to say. I'm saying this in ignorance as someone that grew up listening to heavy metal and progressive rock and post-punk. It seems to me like this might be the first post-hip-hop attempt at creating live soul and funk music. And of course you do have bands like Fugees just around the corner, Lauryn Hill, all those other artists coming out doing so it's this kind of neo-soul music, which is they're getting back to a more organic palette, playing it live the way Sly and Prince did, but it's post-hip-hop. So they're playing in a way that is informed by people like Jay Dilla, who've been experimenting with these loops that shouldn't go together. And you get these natural kind of, strange rhythmic inaccuracies.
That's a sort of more interesting version. I think, we've both discussed this, of how auto-tune on vocals, now people sing naturally in an auto-tuned style. Some of them not even realising what's going on the record. And I guess it's that. And whereas I agree with you, I think rhythmically it's kind of fascinating. I'm not so keen on the natural voice attempting the autotune,
No, I'm not either. And just to be clear, that's not on this record, Guy. You're talking, about like the general, pop, modern pop music.
It was really interesting. And I think what, again, it made me think of is that, this D'Angelo album and the Radiohead album, they really sold in an era when things really sold. And, we always talk about this golden era of rock music and pop music as being 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, but actually it bleeds into 2000, the 21st century, where not only are great albums selling in massive quantities, experimental albums are getting to number one. Because I think, again, when I was a kid, I remember we were teenagers when things like Ghosts were in the top five, the Japan's Ghosts was top five, and Laurie Anderson's So Superman. And I think of that as a golden time, Gary Newman, My Friends Electric, where extraordinary seismic musical shifts were in your top five, but actually it was still happening in 2000. Kid A, D'Angelo, even Tool in the metal world around this time were getting number one records, where music which absolutely reinvented the vocabulary of music is huge.
To be fair, as we speak, the Smile Wall of Eyes is number 3 in the album charts, but yeah, they are the anomaly.
They are the anomaly.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we go back to that. That's the kind of magic trick.
And they're in the late 50s.
That's the magic trick that Tom and Johnny have managed to pull off, which is, it's almost like, it's almost like beyond belief how they managed to do that. Okay, so I mean, I have to say, I was pretty blown away with the D'Angelo album, and he's also a very interesting character. He's quite troubled. He's almost got that Scott Walker thing where he disappears for 10 years and then comes back with another record, which will be another reinvention.
Does he do the Scott Walker go painting and decorating? Does he do that?
Well, I don't know. Maybe he goes painting and decorating between albums.
That's what I'd do. I'd maybe become a toilet cleaner for a year or
so.
something.
2000, since he made this album, he's made one further record called Black Messiah in 2013, which again takes the whole aspect of Dilla time even further, But I think, this album is definitely something, if people have not heard it, it's fascinating. If you don't like it musically, just listen to the way they're using rhythm on this record. I've never heard anything like it. I say that, I have got some Jay Dilla albums in my collection, but Jay Dilla was a DJ. He was using break beats. This is a live drummer. And I said to Gavin, is it easy to play? And he says, it's fucking hard. Gavin, the drummer in my band, Porcupine Tree. In our band, Porcupine Tree.
In your band, Porcupine Tree.
I said to him, is it easy to do that, Jay Dilla? And he says, no, it's fucking hard, because you're basically, as a drummer, you're unlearning everything you've learned to do, play in time, get the groove in the pocket. No, this is the opposite of that. This is like make everything sort of sound like the Shags. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I was absolutely fascinated by this record.
But also, I mean, again, I think it's tied together because the material's good, his voice is strong, and as you say, those layered vocals sound sumptuous.
Yeah, and the production is amazing, yeah.